Wednesday night after work. I'll actually be going back in again soon. It's getting a bit chilly. But I've just been cleaning up the near side tail panel. It's pretty close now, and I think once I cut this corner out, I'll be able to shape this around a bit better just to get it to come right round to this back edge. But I'm going to leave that there until I've welded the two pieces together. So all I've really done tonight is trim this neatly along here, and that gives me the edge on this panel that I'm going to weld to. And I need a little bit of, oh no, I think that'll be fine. This will get hammered around here anyway, so this, even though this is a little bit wavy, it's going to need to be hammered around, so it'll need to be shrunk anyway. So what I can do next is get this panel to fit. This one is way too long as well, so whatever panel goes on the side here will be up higher, so I could actually trim a bit off this. But I think it's wise to sort of leave them oversized till I weld it, and then I'll work on that other side panel and I'll weld those two together and then get that to fit nicely as that top piece, and then I'll start figuring out the sides. This fits nicely, touches the frame all the way around. When you do the boot lid, there's actually two metal strips that go in along here, sort of shaped to fit this. There'll be a slot in the middle, which is where the budget lock goes in the top of the boot lid. And the boot lids seem to vary, but the best idea seems to be just make it from a shaped piece of metal, because it'll flex. The whole tail will flex. So the advice I've been given from someone with a real one is keep it simple, I guess. And that lid just fits over the top, and there's usually straps, leather straps, to hold it down. I'm not sure if there's any sort of seal or anything around it. I suppose I could use modern sort of sticky back foam or sticky back rubber, something like that, and make a seal, and then when this is all pulled down tight, it should be fairly waterproof. Of course, the boot lid needs a hole in it anyway for the fuel filler. So there will be, I'll probably do an aluminium ring and maybe some sort of rubber or leather gaiter type thing that'll go around this. You probably want that to be fairly tight, so that it sort of goes around this and seals it. But I mean, the car doesn't have a roof, so how sealed it is probably doesn't really matter, because if you're in this car and it's in the rain, I'm not going to have a top on it. I wouldn't even know how to begin building the top. They did have tops, you can see it there, all folded up, but how that works, I have no idea. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back through all my archive photos. I've got a library now of 3,000 photos of Riley Brooklands and replicas and all those different similar cars, and I'm not sure I've got any of them with a picture of the top up, so I don't think they really use them. So that's coming along nicely. I'm just taking it slowly, trying not to damage the panel too much. The marks you can see in it are visible, but you can't feel them. I think it's just my wheels are leaving those sort of marks. You can see that's actually where it was wheeled, and it was sort of starting to polish it. So that's about that. I still haven't really done anything about getting a new modern car. There was actually a Renault Megane. It's got a funny name. It's like a something 26, R26. It was basically a hot hatch. It was a very fast car when it came out. There was a racing version of it as well, an R version, which was lightened and had a roll cage and stuff like that. But this one, I think it's a 2007, but it's done, I think it was 250,000 kilometers. So it's a very high mileage car, and it's been used for track days and things like that. And there's not much information about it, like when the cam belts were done and the clutch was done, and if those things haven't been done, you have to get them done, and that probably needs to go to a dealer, and the nearest dealer is 2 hours away, and the parts are expensive, and it's just too much hassle. So my thinking now for a small, modernish, practical, cheap to run car is maybe some sort of VW Golf. And you can get quite nice ones of those. There are sporty versions of those as well. But I think they're pretty common. I'm sure the parts aren't too bad to get. So that's kind of my thinking at the moment for a more modern, more practical car that isn't going to bankrupt me like the Land Rover will. But yeah, that's where I'm at with the Riley, at least. I'll probably upload this film tonight. My upload speeds here, because we're on wireless Wi-Fi, we're not on fiber, and it's really slow. So an hour-long film takes me 3 or 4 or 5 hours to upload and process. So I'll try and make these a bit shorter and make it quicker. It's the weekend, so I'm working on the car again. I have to do some gardening stuff today as well. I got to the point with these rear panels that I needed to join them together to keep getting the shape right. It was just getting a bit tricky trying to work with 2 of them. So I got the edges to line up quite nicely. You can see it's a little bit weird here because the 2 sides aren't even, and I've done the weld on the outside of the panel. My welding's definitely improving, which is good. I still don't get very good penetration through the weld, so I literally just welded this so it's warm. So I still don't get good penetration on the first try, so I just weld it from both sides, and then I know it's got a good solid weld. So what I need to do now is I will clean this up with my stainless steel brush and do a weld on the inside. Still find this torch is good, and I'm still fluxing the panel with the flux paste, but I'm dipping the rod, and I find that helps me control the heat. That pause where I have to put more flux on the rod, that seems to help me get my pacing right. So that weld actually went pretty well. I think I did burn a couple of holes in it. I think that's the back of one of them. There's another one down here somewhere, but not too bad. So I'll give that a go. It's actually really tiring doing this because I have to do it standing up and you're sort of leaning over. It's just an awkward thing to do. So doing more than 5-10 minutes at a time I find is quite tricky. And if you start making mistakes, you just kind of have to stop and slow down and start again. But yeah, that didn't go too badly. And then once I have welded the back, I'll scrub all the flux off with boiling water. I've boiled the jug over there to get it nice and clean. I go over it with boiling water, and then I go over it with cold water as well, and just completely scrub all the flux away. And I do that before I start grinding anything, because you don't want to grind metal with flux in it all over the place. It'll just get everywhere. But this is flux here, I think. So bit of a rest, and then I'm going to try and do the inside seam. Just finished welding the inside. You can hear it cooling down, tinkling, so it's all still hot. And on this weld, I got about halfway through, and then suddenly something clicked, and my welding has improved enormously. You can see here maybe that these welds are kind of lumpy. And then I got to here and tried doing it slightly differently, and it works so much better. I've got a much better weld, far less to grind off, and much better penetration, I think. And all I changed was, instead of dipping the rod into the weld like that, I started wiping it across, if that makes sense. So I'm welding along that direction. Instead of the rod going in the same direction, I'm going perpendicular. And I just sort of wipe the rod through the weld pool. And that works a lot better for me. I'm not getting big lumpy welds. These are almost smooth in some places. I'm just boiling the jug again. I'll wash it all off and have a look at it and see what it looks like. But I think, yeah, so you can see at the end there the panels don't quite match up, but that bit gets cut off. But that's given me much better penetration. I only welded that from the inside. So I think maybe it's suddenly clicked. I'll have to, obviously there's going to be a lot more welding to do, but no, I'm going to keep going like that. That seems to have worked really well. Like I say, I'll clean it off and see what it looks like. Given my panel a good scrub to get all the flux off it. Here's the weld on the outside. And then on the inside. And you can see really clearly where I changed the technique I was using. So at this point it started getting a lot better. Still a bit lumpy there. But yeah, you can see the difference, this compared to this. So that technique seems to work, wiping the rod sideways. So now I need to grind all of this smooth and see how it fits on the car. It's going to need some more shaping, of course. Hopefully not too much, but I'll do the grinding now. Been working on this tailpiece most of the day so far, about 4 or 5 hours. You can see where the weld is. It's not invisible, but it came out pretty well. It's pretty smooth. It's a little bit undercut in places. It is splitting at the end here, but that's because that's where I stopped the weld. This needs to be trimmed back anyway. But it's fitting fairly well. The problem I've had is when I welded it, I lost some of there was shape in it this way, and I lost some of that after I welded it. So I've been wheeling some of that back in to get the curve back here, because otherwise this front edge doesn't touch the wood properly. You can see if it's down at the front, it's up a little bit at the tail. Not much, and I don't think that really matters. It doesn't have to touch the timber. So I'll probably just leave it like that and build the tail to fit. This one needs to be shrunk round a bit, probably trimmed off and a separate piece put in. But that's not clamped on. It's actually just holding itself pretty well, and the curves are close. You can sort of, if you do hold it down, it follows pretty well, so it's not too far off. There's a big mess everywhere because of the filing and the sanding. So I think I need to keep wheeling in here. I find it really hard to get an even shape as well. So there's like a flat spot in here somewhere. But it's getting there. I think that sort of looks right. Did a little bit more work on it and got it fitting pretty well now. Still need to work on this front one a little bit, and I'm still trying to decide where I'm going to split the side, because I think if I tried to do it in one piece, that's way too long. I think the originals were in 3, here to here, a bit in the middle and then a bit at the end. I think I might be able to do it in 2. So I could possibly split it here somewhere. yeah, that front panel still needs a bit of tightening up on the corners. But no, that tail one looks pretty good. But yesterday, I've been doing other things today. I went out first thing this morning and I got some panel pins for when I need to nail the aluminium down. I bought a new countersunk punch. I've got lots of nail punches and things, but they've all been ground on the ends or resharpened, so I got a new one. And this is so that I can drill the holes for the pins and then make a little depression in the aluminium so the heads sit flush. Also bought a little tack hammer just because I don't have any small hammers. And I bought some new brake fluid and I changed the front brake hoses on the MGB. This is a little bit annoying. So a couple of years ago I took it for a warrant to the garage near where I lived, just around the corner, and they'd always been really good, but there was one guy in particular who was meant to be the MGB expert, and basically he was a bit of a dick. And on one of the warrants he pulled me up on the front brake hoses and said they were cracking, so I needed to replace them. I said, okay, I can do that myself, which I don't think he was expecting. So I went and ordered new brake hoses and went to replace the original ones. I should have checked them first, because when I took off the originals, there was absolutely nothing wrong with them. And they're actually better hoses. They're longer and they've got the springy metal outer. So these were the new ones I got. So this must be about 4 or 5 years ago. And my last warrant, the guy who does them now, who I do trust, said to me, oh, your brake hoses are cracking, and indeed they are. You can see there, and I think it's because they were bent on such a tight radius, because the length of them is slightly wrong. So these are now junk, and I dug out the old ones which I'd kept and checked them very carefully, and they're absolutely fine. So I've put them back on the car, and I did a brake fluid change. Had to bleed all the brakes again, so I replaced all the fluid, just using .4, I think it is. And then I had to test the brakes. So you can see there's a few skid marks on the driveway. So they definitely work. And just to be absolutely sure, I went for a quick blast up and down the road, took the dogs with me, and yeah, they're fine. So good, gave the MG a good run. And then when I got home, I gave all of the cars a touchless wash, which is basically a way of saying I'm too lazy to really wash them properly. So I just used the foam cannon with some cleaner, spray all of that on, let it sit for a bit, water blast it off, and then spray on foam car wash wax stuff, and that you're supposed to rub on and then rinse off. I don't bother. I just rinse it off after it sat for a while, and it seems to work fine. So I'm lazy when it comes to the outside appearance of my cars. I don't worry too much, because they get used and they get dinged and they get dirty, so I'd rather not have to worry and try and keep it all perfect. So that was kind of the day, really, doing that and some gardening stuff, because it's been a nice day. Got to play with the chainsaw, which was cool, so we've chopped down some of the trees there, half of them so far. Ran them through our new chipper, mulcher, which is great fun. And that's about it, really. So hopefully I'll be able to do more on the Riley during the week. One of the problems is it's by the time I come out here in the evening, the sun's going down or gone down, and it's freezing, and so working with aluminium is really hard because it gets so cold. The other thing I did is bought a fuel filter, just a cheap filter, and I'm going to fix my diesel heater. I was hoping to do it today, but I ran out of time, and I ended up buying a new burner for it. think this was 25 New Zealand dollars from China, just so cheap. So I'm just going to replace the burner in it because this one is still playing up a little bit. It seems to have issues. It says no fuel sometimes, which could be because of that little tiny filter, hence putting a bigger filter on it. And I've decided it's not worth trying to burn waste oil in them, it just clogs them up. So I'm going to go back to just clean diesel, which is that there. I'll flush out the tank, I'll flush out the fuel lines, and just run it clean, and I think that'll be a lot better for it. Still haven't sorted out my Meccano, still haven't sorted out my Valicette, but definitely making good progress on the Riley. I'm really pleased that my welding, now I've figured out this new technique of swiping the filler rods sideways, not into the weld pool. That seems to be just working so much better for me. So I'll just go with what works. But yeah, it's looking okay.